Eric, Bob, thank you so much for your time. It's so great to get to chat to you about this phenomenal show, which I was just saying, I'm going round again. It's like my carousel of Zero Day.
Wonderful.
And it's not often you get that, where you kind of are pulled back into a show to kind of rewatch because you feel like you might have missed stuff along the way. What was the catalyst, Eric, for this? I mean, before you answer that, for me, I think one of the things that I kind of emotionally connected with was that it feels so real and that it could happen tomorrow.
Yeah, well, authenticity was very important and always important to Bob. But where it started for me was a friend of mine and co-collaborator on the show, Noah Oppenheim, who, outside of being a great writer, was also the head of NBC News for a long time. And we got together in New York a few years ago, and I asked him from the point of view of a newsman where we're headed and I don't think it's unique to America. I think it's global. But where are we as consumers of news and information? Where are we headed? And he said, and I never forgot it. It's chilling that we are headed to our separate truths that are equally held as objective fact, and at the same time, another collaborator, Mike Schmidt, who's a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter for the New York Times, was working on a story about a government investigator who, in the course of his investigation, was losing his memory.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like a perfect way to tell a story about the truth and how elusive it is, but also how crucial it is. And I was fortunate enough to have a meeting with Bob, and I told him the idea and that we were thinking about this, framing it as a former president. Would you like to be the former president? And he, sparked to it, but also really understood it on a level that as as a creator of television, you long for a partner in an actor who understands, perhaps even better than we did in some ways, what this needed to be and what it needed to say.
Was that meeting initially kind of the idea of this character? Are you in straight away? Are you kind of, it's a journey you want to take with Eric and his team?
No, it was, I wasn't sure in that meeting, the first meeting we had, that we had gotten that far, but Eric had said we did. And it was a good start, a good beginning with it. And then as he started sending me the episodes, they were very good, so I was happy.
Is that part of the appeal as well, though, for you as an actor, to get this opportunity with a character to play him over episodes? So, we get to know about him and the depths of him for longer than we would if it was, a feature, for example. Yeah, no,
that's the advantage to doing 6 episodes. You get to do a lot more with the character. You see him in and out of situations where it might be more simple to just say he's this or that, and then when you see him going through other experiences, you say, well, that's also, but you can't do it in a traditional 2-hour movie, say, as Eric was pointing out in another interview. And he's right. That's the upside of it. The downside is it's a lot more work. So,
or the upside.
Or the upside, depending on from what truth you're operating from.
Depending when you look at the call sheet for the day.
It was a very...
That's the bottom line. That's the truth right there, the call sheet.
It was a heavy schedule for sure, and I think I don't know, I can't speak for Bob, but I don't know that he entirely going in understood that, you're in pretty much every scene, and it's 6 hours, and so... But we did it.
How would you describe George?
He's a guy who's a straight shooter. He was a well-liked president when it's been 12 years, and I won't give away why he left, blah, blah, blah. But, and so Angela Bassett's character playing the president felt that he would be the good choice for for dealing with this kind of crisis, which... Right. So that was that. And so then he goes through his trials and tribulations, if you will.
I'm just thinking about you saying about it being a lot of work as well as all the acting. It's like, okay, you got to swim every day. You got to go jogging every day.
But swimming was the easy stuff. Jogging was the easy stuff. It's learning. I always liken it to swimming across the English Channel between, and you're swimming from France, and you're
Yes.
looking behind, you can't see any land. Look ahead of you, you can't see land, and you can't just stay there. You got to swim. So you swim to the other side. But it's a lot of, because there was a lot of information in the script, a lot of exposition,
Yeah.
and the character had to say it, and it just had to, detail that had to be shown to the audience for it to make sense. So that's,
Yeah.
it wasn't like you could go off here and there and improvise. Very little could do that. It's just the nature of the whole thing was much more structured, which is okay, but that made it more of a thing for me to have to really tighten up and
Yeah.
keep going.
Great playmates for you to play with as well. Great.
Great cast.
Oh my, incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, just those. They're so glorious to watch, you and Jesse, and also with Lizzie Kaplan is phenomenal in this show as well, and that's got to be part of the joy, creating the show, but also having those scene partners to
Of
really
course,
play
yeah,
with.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's a testament to Bob as sort of the, being at the center of the show. I mean, it certainly makes, I like to think that Noah and I did a really good job in writing the show, but I think a lot of the appeal and the reason why we got our first choice in every single part was the opportunity to work with Bob. I think that's a bucket list item for pretty much everyone who's picked up the acting ever.
Top, number
yes,
one.
Number one.
Yeah. The music's brilliant in the show.
Yeah.
The score that Jeff Russo's created is really
did a great job.
fantastic. It's got a real kind of classic nature to it. But I want to ask you first about the Who Killed Bambi.
Yes.
So the choice of that kind of Temple Tudor Sex Pistols Vivienne
Yes.
Westwood track.
Yes.
And tell me a little bit about the origins of that being part of the story.
It appears in an Adam Curtis documentary, and Noah and I, had sort of been. It was part of our research process was looking at truth through a different lens. The idea that the truth has become subjective is not an entirely new idea. If you look back, things like Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States or the Adam Curtis documentaries where there was a lot of obfuscation and a lot of omission in truth. And so it seemed a fitting, strange, kind of unpleasant musical experience. It's not a song that you're like, hey, I'm gonna let's put this on and chill.
He's nodding.
Yeah, no, he was like, what's wrong with this kid? Why is he listening to this shit? And the point is kind of, it's this thing that is discordant and unpleasant. And there's actually some beautiful music like Penderecki's, Trinity for the Victims of Hiroshima, for example. Like, you don't put that on and appreciate, its beauty. And I think, for us, this song you'd like to have out of your head, that was sort of a prerequisite for the song.
And was that, in terms of, because I think that's such a wonderful kind of testament to your performance in this, Bob, is that the way that there's so much that we learn about the character, the situation, not from dialogue, but from what you're doing and your reaction to things, whether it is, that kind of breezing in or, whatever. What was the reality of kind of shooting those? Did you play anything on set or was that all done post?
You would hear the music when we needed
Yeah,
you
we
to hear
played
the
it.
music.
Yeah? Oh,
Yeah.
how does that help?
Well, it just helps that it's there and you're listening to the actual music and you don't know what could come up, if anything.
Yeah.
But it's always good to have that there. If it's there in the scene, then it should be there. It's like having another actor off camera. Then they're not on camera and you're doing a scene as you do for them, they do for you, so that you have to interact with another person, and the other character. Same with the music, being there.
Even knowing when to bring it in on, in the script, when it needs to be there and when it, the power that it has of when it comes in and the changes in the character.
There's very much a language to the character's mental disassembly. There is, there has to be, and whether it's real or imagined, which you have to watch the show to formulate an opinion as to whether or not it's actually happening or not. It needs to follow certain rules, and the way that so much of I think the selling of it is in Bob's reaction to this song that again he would never choose to listen to himself.
Never.
And it's funny because Bob and I
brought you a framed
Oh,
gold
great.
disc.
I've been I've had the privilege of working with Bob now for 3 years, and I've had many conversations with him, whether he's in his car or and I can hear the music that he's listening to. It's very much not this. I mean, really not this. So it was, but again, that's kind of the point of it.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you listen to?
I like old rock and roll songs. Of course, when I was a kid in the late 50s, 60s, early 60s. Also, I listen to a channel in New York called Chill. I don't know.
Yeah.
These days it goes all over the world, I suppose.
Very British, by the way. That chill music
Okay,
is sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
And then a thing called Spa, just nice, easy. When I'm driving around the city, I like something to just bring me down.
Calm you down.
Yeah,
I like it.
and lately I've been listening to a Sinatra channel, those types of songs, which is, just
Part of your
some-
life.
yeah, just for some reason it feels right. Maybe it's my age. I don't know. I hear this stuff. It just seems right driving through the streets. Blah blah.
So many of those that you mention have been have soundtracked so many of the films that you've been
Yeah.
in as well with Mr. Scorsese, who,
Yep.
I was lucky enough. I chatted to him for Killers of the Flower Moon, and it was wonderful to celebrate that film, but also that last score that he worked on with Robbie,
Yeah.
which was just
Yeah.
phenomenal. Gave Robbie the chance to really celebrate his heritage
Yeah.
through the music he created for it as well. Did you play music on set with Marty at all? Talking about.
No, I mean, whatever I want to do, he'll do, or any actor wants to do. You want to
Yeah.
do that, you do whatever you want. But no, if necessary, as I said, we would do that. But that wasn't a thing that he would do as a director.
Yeah. Because there's certainly, he was talking about, sorry for just 2
No,
seconds, if you mind.
I'm
There was a
enjoying
couple of
it.
specific films that he talked about where, and Thelma, who I also had the joy of sitting with, talking about how he comes almost with a musical script of what he's putting in the film. And with Raging Bull, that incredible Cavalleria Rusticana at the
Yeah.
start. And he knew from his childhood that was something that was going to be, that was with him, that carried through his life, and to get the chance to have it in this film, and how it's like a ballet watching you in that scene.
No, it was great because I remember when I looked at the movie, he showed me the first cut. I don't know whether it was a rough cut, but the first time he showed it to me, and Cavalleria Rusticana, I said, that's great, Marty. I never heard it before. He said, I said, that's
Yeah.
just great.
And that he temped Taxi Driver to Van Morrison before he got Bernard Herrmann to do the score.
I did not know that. That's
Yes!
great.
What was that?
He almost scored the film with Van
With
Morrison.
Van Morrison.
Before he
Wow.
got Bernard to.
Oh,
I had
didn't
no
know that.
idea.
Yeah, and that was his last score, Bernard Herrmann's. I think he
Was.
passed away
Yeah.
the night they finished.
Yeah. What
Nixon.
about that Jackson Browne track? Did he play that at all? Because that feels so synonymous with that scene where you're in the, you're sat watching the TV with the gun, and that Jackson Browne. You just feel like it's playing in the
Yeah.
scene, but no.
So that was in, or
Was it when you filmed it? Did he? Was it?
oh no,
there?
no, he didn't. No.
Wow.
I don't think so. I don't remember.
That's crazy.
Unless I wanted, or he said this is. I said okay, let's have that.
Yeah.
I don't remember. It could have, but I don't think
Wow.
so.
So you kind of watch and just feel like it's been played in that room. Let's talk about Jeff, because
Yes.
the wonderful score in this as well, and kind of complement. It's kind of timeless in a way, but it does feel like it has a slight toe in a real kind of classical,
Yeah.
really.
We talked from our first conversation. We talked about Jerry Goldsmith.
Great.
And I come from a family of film composers, and so I've always endeavored to get the right person for the job. I mean, music makes such a difference when it's good, and it can really disable you when it's
Yeah.
bad. We had a temp score that just was done by the editorial staff, members of the editorial staff, that wasn't delivering. And so to have Jeff come in and really kind of bring it to life
Yeah.
in a great way, because obviously there's an urgency to this, that needs to feel constant, and you're also dealing with a character's sort of devolving cognitive state, and so that requires a certain type of music. So if you think about the ask musically, what you're trying to do, it's very, very complicated. There's a lot going on, and as you said, all that detail and richness requires a level of attention on as a viewer and as the filmmakers.
Yeah, and also, but to the point where it's not telling the audience of anything
No.
before
Right.
they experience it, or
It's
Staying out of the way.
yeah,
it's
But supporting it when it needs.
yeah.
it's a bit of a tightrope musically, and he did an amazing job.
There's a lot of it as well, which is
A lot of
great.
music. Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
music. And no, there's not, other than Who Killed Bambi, there
Mm-hmm.
are no other, there's some classical source stuff, but no Neil, there's no soundtrack beyond the score.
What's the decision in that? What's the kind of, is that to almost heighten this, the Pistols track and in a way?
Yes,
or?
but I think also we are dealing in a reality that isn't, that's not supposed to be immediately recognizable as
Yeah.
our area. We have to sort of be clever about, it.
Yeah.
And so once you start having contemporary songs that people recognize, it starts to feel,
yeah, it puts a timestamp on it, doesn't it,
yeah,
in a
which
way?
we didn't want to do. We
Yeah.
don't reference, specifics really.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we achieve a specificity, that does feel like it's now.
Yeah.
So and the music helped, by having it be, almost entirely original. You never felt like, oh, now I'm back in my world. So
Also the use of, I don't know if it is art. I mean, we see all these kind of familiar faces from news channels and things that have
Yeah.
obviously, been part of the production, but you see lots of, a little bit of kind of, kind of old footage, whether it's, archive and that
Yeah.
kind of thing. And I'm not quite watching it the second time. I'm like, oh, did they create that or is that archive? It's so clever.
Yeah.
However you've managed to do it, because it just immerses us in the kind of the kind of authenticity of it, and
Yeah.
the kind of the kind of the panic of it in
Yeah.
a way as well.
I think Noah and Mike Schmidt and some of the consultants that we used, really experienced people. It was so important that language by which we absorb news is familiar to all of us. Whatever network you're watching, whatever version of events you're getting, it comes packaged in the same delivery system.
Yeah.
And so it being familiar to audiences who actually experience so many things through the cable news lens.
Yeah.
That was, I think, a big part of our authenticity, and a lot of the story plays people looking at monitors, which creates obviously a challenge for our actors, a challenge for our director. It was easy for Noah and I to just sort of say, "Yeah, you're looking at a screen." Yeah, he looks at a screen. Okay, great, done. We're done for the day. But we had a lot of people reacting to
Yeah.
green screen occasionally. There are moments where Bob's character is actually communicating directly with the television. So that language becomes a big part of our authenticity.
I just want to finish on your performance again, Bob, which is brilliant. And I love the kind of, he has this calmness about him that nothing really sort of phases him. He's got confidence in his ability to get through a situation and to get to the end point. That's the whole thing about truth and finding the truth. And even, when he's at interrogation, all that kind of thing, there's still this kind of like, he never doesn't really get riled sort of thing. Was that on the page, or was that something that you kind of really wanted to bring to the character? It's fantastic to watch.
No, that was what it was on the page, but it was also just the way we felt it should be done.
Why? Why do you think why does that character warrant that sort of, that particular presence and emotion, do you think?
Well, I think that's what's needed in that role.
Yeah.
The role of a president and the role as an actor. It's someone who's has a responsibility to everybody to be in control of things, calm, if you will, and dealing with sometimes easy situations and other ones quite dramatic and disastrous, potentially disastrous. So you gotta hold it together for everybody. Set a good example.
For us, I think the conviction that he is an honest person.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and I think it was very important to Bob, and the character, will do the right thing because he's compelled to do the right thing, and sort of in that sort of perhaps slightly anachronistic, unfortunately, moral code of of course I'm going to do the right thing. And there's a certain confidence that comes from that. Even when the mechanism by which you interpret truth is broken, you can always fall back on I'm the good guy in this story. And I think despite some of the things that his character does, he is the good guy of the story.
Right place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
Make
you.
a great president.
Thank you.